Hey there, my name's Holly, and this is the story of how I cheated my husband out of getting what he wanted all along. Well, I guess I should call him my ex now, considering the divorce has finally been officialized, thank God. But there was a time that these divorce proceedings would be the bane of my existence. Why did they always take so long to process? Anyhow, one day before our divorce, my husband Timothy drove 13 hours to meet me and asked to talk to me just one more time. But I didn't even open the door, considering what I found out earlier that day. I was done with our marriage, and I didn't want to prologue this charade of care and love, when in reality it was just a toxic relationship that had just run its course. Timothy and I had been married for 10 years, but our relationship had been rocky for a while. We had grown apart, and I no longer felt the same way about him that I used to. So, when he showed up at my door begging for another chance, I knew what I had to do. I'm sorry, Timothy, I can't do this anymore. Holly, please, just hear me out. I have heard it all before, Timothy. I can't keep going through this cycle of pain and disappointment. It's time for us to move on. But Timothy wasn't giving up that easily. He kept knocking on the door and calling my phone, begging me to talk to him. I stayed strong, though. I knew I had to stick to my decision. And eventually, after what felt like hours, he left. Let me rewind a couple of months prior to this incident, so that you understand my situation just a bit better. Timothy and I were in one of our heated arguments yet again. He wasn't listening to me, despite me telling him that I didn't appreciate him never picking up after himself. With Timothy, it's like he wanted to be told the same thing over and over and over again. It was exhausting having to repeat myself, especially when it was for very simple things. I don't want to mother and coddle you, Timothy. You're a grown man. Why don't you act like it? I don't know what you're talking about. Yeah, why don't I just leave then? Why don't you? I will. And then I would leave. And then a couple of days later, he'd follow me to the hotel I was staying at, beg for my forgiveness, and I would always relent, convincing myself that we possibly couldn't get divorced due to something that was so seemingly small and insignificant. But to tell you the truth, folks, if someone doesn't change after constantly being reminded to do just that, you just get exhausted and resentful. And that's exactly what happened. I noticed him growing colder and closer to a workmate, and he swore up and down that nothing was going on. But that one night, something crazy happened. I was going home from work. We were in one of our okay phases, I guess, with nothing in particular going wrong, but also nothing going right either. We were like housemates who just stayed out of each other's way. But tonight, I wanted to rekindle some of that spark that was missing, and so, like a wife from the 50s, I welcomed him at the door with a martini for him. Hey, babe, how was work? Oh, hey, Holly, what's all this? You didn't have to do all this. Nonsense. I just wanted to do something special for my man. Now come over here and hug me. I should probably take a shower before doing that. I've been working all day. I don't want to get you all musty. Oh, that's all right. It's not like you were doing any strenuous activity or anything. Yeah, right. Anyways, let me shower. Babe, is it so much to ask for a hug and a kiss from my husband when he comes home from work? I just feel gross right now, that's all. Okay, well, I don't mind one bit. I told you that. I really need to... At that moment, I didn't even let him continue speaking. I just enveloped myself around him, and he smelt just fine to me. He had his usual cologne on, but it smelled extra strong for some reason as he applied it recently. Unfortunately for him, though, I have a keen sense of smell, and at the end of the hug, as I was pulling away, I noted a feminine scent. I thought that was strange, of course, but what was even stranger was the lipstick stain I saw on his collar. As if it was a knee-jerk reaction, I slapped him. I dropped the martini to the ground and started crying. Tell me I'm imagining things. I can explain. Okay, explain. I don't think he was expecting me to allow him to speak because he was stuttering and stammering more than a nervous kid at a spelling bee. You dog, you're vile, you're sick. Please calm down. You'll wake up the neighbors. I don't care. I want them to hear me. I want them to know just how awful you truly are. How could you do this to me after everything we've been through? You really wanted to break my heart this time, huh? Well, congratulations. If you didn't want me anymore, why didn't you just say that? Well, I didn't expect things to go this far. It just kind of happened. How long? How long what? How long have you been cheating on me? I can't even remember. Same person? No. Wow. Just wow. You really think you can get away with treating me like this? Like I won't burn this whole house down to the ground? No, don't do that. Why not? You've already destroyed everything. Why not destroy even more? Why not rid myself of the memories we've made together? Holly, please, you're being dramatic. Excuse me? I just feel like we can't talk about this. The time for talking and negotiating is over, Tim. Where were you when you were having doubts or feeling lonely or whatever it is you're going through that made you feel like you could do this to me? Where was the communication then? Exactly. You have no excuses. You're just a terrible person. Did you ever bring them here? Holly, please. Did you ever bring them to my home? Yes. Yes, I did. I can't believe it. You couldn't sully some other place. You had to decimate and disgrace this home that I've built for myself. You are pathetic. My mom was right about you. Do you think I'm being dramatic? Just wait, because you haven't seen anything yet. I lost it. I tore the house apart. I didn't care that it was mine. I was planning on selling it and moving on. There were too many memories here, too much pain and heartache. And this was the fattest straw that could ever break the camel's back. I was breaking dishes and ripping paintings. I tore up the couches and other furniture. I went upstairs and I was yelling and crying about how I would drain him dry of every penny he had in this divorce proceeding that I was threatening to go through with. For real this time. I tore his clothes and eventually he restrained me. Even though I was fighting, he was much stronger than me, so he obviously got me to settle down. Well, as much as I could, because I was still screaming and crying. The fact that his hands were on me felt like a violation. After knowing what he was doing, I felt sick to my stomach that this was the man that I devoted 10 years of my life to. Even though my heart was shattering in real time, and I could feel each of the shards sinking deeper and deeper into my core, in a sick and twisted way perhaps, I was kind of glad that he cheated on me after the dust had settled a bit and I was gaining a bit more clarity on what happened. I realized good riddance. I mean, what exactly was I holding on to anyways? At this point, Timothy had become a certified bum. Someone who was always waiting to be catered to and waited on as if he was some greedy king. His cheating on me gave me an excuse to officially end things in a manner that felt a bit more cemented and justified to me. Since I was too scared to end it before, surely this situation, as grand and as awful as it was more than enough to get him for all of the pain and suffering I was put through. In other words, it was easier to argue in court with cheating allegations than just disputes over household duties. I was completely fed up with Timothy at this point, and I was ready to be rid of him and his incessant idiocy. Ladies, what is it with some men and their inability to be affectionate and respectful when you're with them? But when you threaten to leave, that's when they put in 110% effort. What is that? Anyhow, that was the beginning of the end, you all. Timothy and Holly were set to be officially donezo, and because divorce proceedings can take forever to finalize, Timothy sought to seize this window of opportunity by constantly begging and pleading to get back with me. He would do all these crazy things like posting about how much he messed up on social media to garner sympathy and attention. He would make so many posts daily talking about how much he messed up. He even went as far as to get a tattoo of my face on his back. To say he was deranged is certainly not saying enough. All of these gestures of affection turned me off, though. There was no coming back from what he did to me because I took adultery very seriously. Funnily enough, though, this workmate who was his new mistress still stuck with him, even though he was making it known to everybody that he still wanted me. I guess she was just as pathetic as he was. They definitely deserved each other. Even though it was quite hard, considering I did share 10 years of my life with him, I managed to stand firm in preventing him from ever coming back into my life. That was until one day. I received a call from my lawyer, and he was assuring me that the divorce would be finalized very soon, approximately in a day. That's great news, Greg. Finally, I'll be able to live in peace. I began to celebrate a little, awarding myself with a glass of wine and a trip down memory lane so that I could officially mourn and subsequently move on from the loss of this relationship. I went to the attic and began to search through the boxes. I found old pictures that reminded me of a life that I missed so dearly. And then I came across something interesting. It was a document. More specifically, it was a mineral rights document. I was so confused. Why on earth would we have a mineral rights document? I began to read it, obviously, and to my complete shock and horror, it turned out that underneath this house that I bought were precious stones and minerals that could be worth millions. I had to read and reread what I was reading to make sure that I was reading it right, and sure enough, the information was there. Dusty and a bit stained from years of neglect, but certainly official. Why on earth was this information up here? And more importantly, why was I not informed about this? I began to do some more digging because things weren't adding up, and the conclusions I came across will shock you, just as how it shocked me. As I looked further down the document, scanning for more details, I saw that it was my ex-husband's signature on the document, indicating that he was well aware of this information. And then it all began to click in my head. What if the reason why Timothy was trying to get back together is that he wanted to claim part of that money that could be used because once the divorce is finalized, he wouldn't have any rights to the spoils? I was completely heartbroken once again. I didn't know someone could be so money hungry. Part of me began to believe him and his lies again. But after finding this out, I had to remind my aching heart that a wolf in sheep's clothing is always going to be just that, and there's nothing I can change about him. Even though this newfound theory had minimal basis, I had a gut feeling that this was the reason why he was so driven and hell-bent on getting back to me. My suspicions were confirmed when later on, that day, when I received a knock on the door, speak of the devil, am I right? Timothy, what on earth are you doing here? Hey, Holly, I came all this way to see you. Yeah? What for? Please, Holly, give us another chance. I'm sorry, Timothy, I can't do this anymore. Holly, please, just hear me out. I've heard it all before, Timothy. I can't keep going through this cycle of pain and disappointment. It's time for us to move on. Please, there's something important for us to discuss. What? What is it that you want to discuss? There's something very precious that I'll be leaving behind if we don't get back together. Something precious? Well, what might that be? Well, you, of course. Uh-huh, right. Well, I'm so sorry, but I'm not interested in further developing anything with you. Have a nice life in your state with your new boo. As for me, though, I'm glad that we're done. I slammed the door in his face, and he continued to knock and yell all about how he drove 13 hours just to see me, as if that's going to garner any sympathy from me. Eventually, though, as was mentioned previously, he left. But that didn't stop him from trying to talk to me still by bombarding my phone with texts and calls. Eventually, after what felt like hours of him calling me, I relented and accepted his calls. What is it, Tim? Holly, I need to talk to you. I got a hotel nearby, but I'm coming over right now. Don't bother, Tim. I know all about why you're obsessed with getting me back. What do you mean? Oh, don't be so coy. You know what I mean. Well, I have no idea what you're talking about. I just want to be with you. I know you've returned the mineral rights document. There was a pause. I had finally caught him. What mineral rights document? The one you signed and managed to not tell me about for the past couple of years. You must have forgotten about the future that is lying underneath this property, huh? That's why you drove 13 hours? I'm the one who discovered the minerals, so I should be entitled to it. Yeah, well, it's under my property. So, I'm getting those documents whether you like it or not. You can try your best, but please note that I will call the police on you if you so much as set foot inside my property, you troll. How dare you? How dare you, Timothy? I loved you. I took care of you. We shared so many life experiences. You're the one who decided to throw all of those things away when you became distant and started cheating on me. I can explain. That was, well, yeah, my point exactly. You're a selfish and egotistical maniac who doesn't care about anyone but themselves. That's not true. I think it is. Why didn't you tell me about all of this back then, huh? Why am I only finding this document now? That's what I thought. You never cared about me. Wait, that's not true. Goodbye, Timothy, and I pray to God that the divorce proceedings are finalized by tomorrow. What? Tomorrow? Yep. My lawyer told me that everything should be done and dusted by tomorrow. Damn. You can try and throw as many wrenches in this plan as you want, but nothing will ever stop fate from being fulfilled. You were always meant to be a bottom feeder, digging in the trenches for a morsel of significance. But you're just pathetic, and that's what you'll always be. Once everything is done tomorrow, trust and believe that I'm getting all of that money, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. I cut the call before he could say or do anything else. And I was bombarded by many calls and texts yet again. Instead of the seemingly sweet and flowery texts that I received earlier, these texts were filled with horrible threats and slimy words. It was very shocking when a monster reveals himself, but unfortunately, I was at a point where this wasn't even all that surprising. I didn't care about his threats. I already knew that I had gotten my revenge. I had already won. The next day came around, and I was waiting eagerly like a kid waiting for Christmas morning, for the news of my divorce finally being official. I wanted to be rid of this man so badly that my heart was racing, just thinking of all of the newfound freedom that would come about. At approximately 11 a.m. that morning, ladies and gentlemen, I became a free woman. My lawyer called and told me that everything was finalized, and that I no longer had any affiliations with this man. I spent the next couple of hours dancing and parading around. I also told my lawyer about the mineral rights document, and he was sure to share in my elation at the fact that none of that money belonged to that worthless and pathetic man. Of course, my celebration had to be cut short because, surprise, surprise, Timothy was calling me. I felt like gloating a little bit, so I decided to answer. Hello? Holly, I'm getting that document. At this point, I think you might like the idea of rotting in jail. What did I tell you before? Are you forgetting the security systems we had installed? Well, I want you to know something. No, Tim, darling, ex-husband, I want you to know something first. You are a cockroach, and you are a slimy sleazeball who deserves nothing. I'm getting a restraining order against you, which means that there will be hell to pay if you try your shenanigans again. Unsurprisingly, I became pretty famous in my community for having all of this wealth just laying beneath my property, and for many years at that. This newfound fame managed to garner even more money for me as I not only became an overnight millionaire, but essentially I also got brand deals as well as opportunities to talk on podcasts and TV shows. I'm even in the works of writing my book. I'm so proud of what I've accomplished thus far. I was so grateful for all of the things that I could accomplish. I finally managed to replace all of the furniture I tore up from that dreadful night when I found out Timothy had been cheating on me. And no, I didn't move from my house. I decided that although it might have been a bit painful to stay in a place that had so many memories, it was part of my growth. I learned to appreciate the bad with the good, and I opted to just improve upon my house instead of completely leaving it behind. Although this was the house that harbored so many bad memories, it also contained a lot of good ones, especially the ones where Timothy was at my door pleading and begging to be let inside, and I simply wouldn't let him. I found the symbolism to be cathartic. And as for my ex, well, turns out his relationship with his workmate didn't last very long after hearing that I got all the money from the minerals, and there was nothing he could do about it. I guess that he started treating her the way he truly felt about her. And she realized his true colors, too. I'm just glad she realized it 1 year into the relationship and not 10 years as I did. I did manage to get that restraining order on Tim, and I just know that he's punching the air somewhere, wishing he had taken those mineral rights sooner. I guess I'm grateful for his laziness, as it made me a millionaire.